Hey y'all, welcome to the Second of Strength podcast. My name is Tanner Clark. I went from sitting at a desk to speaking on stage internationally to inspire teenagers and people like you. My goal is simple: help you find your 1 second of strength to walk away from the things that are holding you back, to step into your potential, and ultimately find happiness. Thank you for spending your valuable seconds with me today. Let's go. Welcome to today's episode. We're going to talk a little bit today about something that I think happens to a lot of us. Sometimes it happens intentionally, sometimes it happens unintentionally, but we're going to talk a little bit about self-sabotage today. And here's the deal. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy, and we are the only thing standing between ourselves and where we want to get to. We are the only thing standing in our way, and look, we're limiting our growth, we're limiting our happiness, we're limiting our success, and it's just because of self-sabotage. And again, sometimes that's on purpose. Think about, like, we're on this, it's happened plenty of times in my life. I'm on this health kick. I want to be healthier, and we live in a state where there's Bluebell ice cream, or maybe it's cake for you, maybe it's some snacks, maybe who knows what it is, but like for me, it's Bluebell ice cream. If there is Bluebell ice cream in our house, I am eating it every night, no question. It's just the way it is. So sometimes we do this on purpose. Sometimes it's subconsciously, where we may sabotage a goal where we don't even realize we're doing it until later on. But then we can look back, and in hindsight, we can realize that we were kind of standing in our own way and keeping ourselves from whatever that goal was. So self-sabotage is something that's real. It's something that we do. And there's a quote. So Muhammad Ali one time had a quote. He said, "It isn't the mountains ahead to climb that wear you out. It's the pebble in your shoe." And I think that self-sabotage is sometimes that pebble in our shoe. It's sometimes that one little thing that just keeps nagging at us and keeps us there. And if we were to remove that from our lives, we would be great. We would move forward. We would progress. But instead, sometimes we just don't. We just have that pebble there. Is constantly nagging us, is constantly impeding us. And unfortunately, it's the thing that wears us out. It's the thing that limits us and keeps us from getting to where we want to go. And so we need to remove those obstacles. And so we're going to talk about 4 ways that we self-sabotage in our lives. And when we self-sabotage, and we're going to talk about, 1, what are those 4 ways and how to overcome those things. I think the third one is really the one that impedes a lot of people, and the fourth one. But the first is distraction. And here's the thing: distraction is the enemy of action. We put so many distractions in our lives that we are sabotaging our growth, sabotaging our future, sabotaging who we can become. And, very simply, if you follow me on social media, I'm big on intentional time. I'm big on smartphones. I'm big on those sorts of things. And the digital devices in our lives that steal our attention. And that is one of the biggest things. We have smartphones that are constantly, and sometimes it's like that silent vibration on our phone, right? And we don't even know. It's not even buzzing, but we grab at it or we look at it, and it's just like this subconscious, like, man, my phone, something must be happening on my phone. So we grab our phones. Sometimes it's to-do lists. Sometimes it's the endless list, right? And we create more and more and more lists of things that we think we need to do, or things that we put in front of our waist, just so we can procrastinate a little bit longer the things that we should do, right? And so we have these lists of things that ultimately don't matter. And when we focus too much time and attention on things that don't matter, we never get to the things that actually do matter. And so distraction is the enemy of action. And really, the pathway to overcome that is set your intentions and be very deliberate about what you want to accomplish and getting those things out of your life, right? So set a time that you're going to go after the goal, go after the thing that you want to accomplish, set your intention. And then here's the key: don't deviate. Don't deviate. For me, my phone has to be out of sight. I put it in the RO box. If there's a link in the show notes to the RO box, but I put it in a place that is out of sight, out of mind, so that I can limit that distraction in my life. So the first thing is distraction is one of the biggest ways that we self-sabotage. We do it through procrastination, but we have these things that we put in place in our lives that are limiting who we can become just because it is a constant distraction to us. The second thing, the second way we're self-sabotaging is perfectionism. We have this belief, a lot of people have this belief that everything has to be perfect before we start, before we move on, before we progress, before we grow. And that is just so detrimental to who we want to become, because let's be honest, is there ever a perfect time, right? We say things like, well, when I have enough money, I'm going to do XYZ. When I have enough time, I'm going to do XYZ. When I feel more confident, when I'm not as tired, when I'm this, when I'm that, when I'm all these things. And there is never a perfect time to start. There never will be. There will always be something standing in your way if you allow it to stand in your way. And you have to recognize, and the way to overcome that is recognize that the only outcome of waiting for the perfect time is regret. Because if you keep placing things in your way or putting parameters around your goals, when this happens, when it's perfect, when all of these things, if you continue to do that, someday you're going to look back and say, man, I wish I would have started back then. I would be so much further ahead if I had started when I said I wanted to start, but I was too scared to do it, or I had this thought that everything had to be perfect. It had to be the opportune time. And so we get to this spot where we get so fixated on focusing on perfection or a perfect time to start that we never really actually start. And there's nothing worse than having a goal, having a dream, having a vision that you never really start. And I hope that you take this moment today to recognize that perfection is not going to happen. And you can start anyway. And the reality is that the biggest way to overcome that belief of things need to be perfect is just starting and realizing that you can figure it out as you go. You can fix things as you go. And if you think about anybody who has started something, who has achieved something in their life, big or small or whatever it is those people, they just simply started. And that's all you have to do. You simply have to let go of perfectionism and just start and recognize that you have so much time to fix things and tweak them and get them to where you want to be. But if you don't, you will someday look back on where you're at and realize that you just regretted not starting sooner. So first thing, distraction. Second thing, perfectionism. We are self-sabotaging by waiting for the perfect time. The third thing, limiting beliefs. So what is a limiting belief? Very simply, the definition of a limit is a restriction on the size or amount of something permissible or possible. So we are restricting what's possible. And a belief is the acceptance that a statement is true. So we are literally placing a limit on truth. That is what a limiting belief is. And the challenge is that those beliefs that we put a limit on, they are never really the peak. They are really never, you can always do more that's possible. And so there's something that happens. So if you put 100 fleas in a jar, right? You put them in a jar and you screw on the top of the jar, right? So it's a closed-in jar. They're like half the fleas, so 50 fleas will jump up and hit the top of that jar and they'll die. The other 50%, the other 50 fleas, they will learn that you can only jump to the top of that lid. You can only jump so high and without getting hurt, without killing yourself basically or damaging yourself. So if you take off that lid, those 50 fleas that have survived so far, they will never jump out of that jar, ever. So you've got 50 fleas who have put a limit on their belief, thinking they cannot jump out of the jar, and they will never jump out, even though the opportunity, the potential, all of those things are there to do it, but they have capped their growth. They have capped who they are. They have capped their belief system in themselves, and so they would never actually jump out of that jar. We do that all the time. We do it all the time, right? We think that we can't, it's too hard. We think that we're not good enough. We think that, maybe you have these big aspirations or big goals or whatever, whatever your thing is. And you go, yeah, but nobody cares what I have to say. Nobody cares what I do. They don't really want to listen to me. And we say that, I can't meet new people because I'm too depressed. And we place all of these like restrictions on our life. But here's the thing. A limiting belief is something that we put a cap on potential, just like those fleas in a jar. But your potential is always, always, always higher. So think about this. I want you to think for a minute, all of the times in your life where you maybe thought you couldn't do something, but you did. I want you to think about all of the things that you've overcome. I want you to think about all of the successes you've had up until this point. I want you to think about how far you've come and recognize that you might have placed limits on yourself before, but you overcame them. You have overcome them. And the reality is that the best way to overcome a limiting belief is to simply push beyond it. If you think you can't meet new people because you're sad or you're depressed, well, the way to overcome that is actually going out and meeting new people. If you think that you can't start a side hustle because it's too hard or you don't have enough time, well, the way to do it and the way to overcome that limiting belief is actually to start, and then you'll recognize that you have all sorts of time. And I think that we do this all the time in our life where we just say it's too difficult and we just put these caps on our potential, not realizing that by doing that, all we are doing is self-sabotaging. All we are doing is saying is planting this small seed of belief in our mind that we just can't do it. And so limiting beliefs, the third thing, is one of the most detrimental things that we do. And I know that you are better than that. I know that you have what it takes to overcome all of those little seeds of disbelief in your life. And I know because you've made it this far. I know because you are further than you ever thought you ever come. If you take a second, look back at your life, you will realize just how far you've come. And look, the mountain you're climbing, it might be pretty high, but don't put that pebble in your shoe. Don't self-sabotage how far you can go just because you're a little bit scared of where you're at. I just think that there's nothing worse than that. And the reality is that you have so much potential. You have so much inside of you. And I think you know that. And if you don't, you can lean on my belief in you for just a little bit. Lean on my belief just to get started. Lean on my belief in you just long enough to take that first step. And after you take that first step, I want you to celebrate it. Celebrate that you have taken that step and that you can move a little bit further. And then take that next step and celebrate that you took one more step. And don't knock yourself down because you haven't run the full marathon yet. Celebrate the steps that you've taken. And when you do that, you will find so much joy and happiness in the seeds that you've planted and how far you've come that you will start to enjoy the process of growth instead of fearing the growth that has not happened yet or thinking that it's too far to go. So that's the third thing. The third way that we are self-sabotaging in our life is limiting beliefs. The fourth way is excuses. We humans have a tendency to turn speed bumps into roadblocks. We have these small, little, minuscule problems that we turn into these massive things that we cannot overcome in our mind. And it comes down to negative thinking, a negative mindset. And I have a friend was talking to recently who was just talking about chasing your passions and finding joy and finding other avenues for happiness in her life. And as we talked about it, I'm sitting there listening and I'm going, man, there is so much here. Like, you could do so many things. And as I shared those things with her, every single time I said something, it was met with maybe, but yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Yeah, maybe, but and every single time, and I'm going, look, you want to chase your passions, but you're not willing to look beyond the speed bumps. You are turning every single small little I don't have time, or yeah, nobody wants to hear me, or whatever it is, all those limiting beliefs, and you are turning them into these massive roadblocks and saying that you'll never get past them. It is time to limit the size of your butts. That is not I guess from an exercise perspective, we can all do that as well. But it's time to limit the size of our excuses. It's time to stop putting these massive excuses in the middle of our pathway and saying, oh, I can't get over them, when we're the ones that put that thing there. So it's time to stop thinking negatively and start changing your mindset around that. It's time to stop thinking about all of the reasons why not and start thinking about the reasons why. Why will you be successful? Why will you be able to overcome that? Why will you be able to take that next step? Why will you be able to help that next person? Why will you be able to? And it's because it's you. It's because you are the person. And there's my favorite quote, and I have it on my wall. I've always had it in my offices. It says, it's got by a guy named Charles Kettering. I don't even know who he is. I think he was a car guy. I don't even know. But he said, believe and act as though it were impossible to fail. Believe and act as though it were impossible to fail. And I can tell you in my life, as I have put that quote in writing in rooms where I'm trying to grow, it has been a beacon of hope for me to remember that it really isn't just about the belief, because sometimes the beliefs are limiting, but it is really about the action. And when we add belief and action together and we start taking those steps, no matter how small, no matter how little, no matter how seemingly insignificant, when we take all of those steps, that's when we start getting to where we want to be. And there's a book called The Compound Effect. It's a great book, a simple concept, great book for everybody. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and it's the simple premise of that small and seemingly insignificant steps taken consistently over time lead to great results. And that's all that is. Believe and act. Believe and take those small steps. Believe and continue. Believe and grow. Believe and keep going. Those simple acts, and adding those two things together, believe and act as though it is impossible to fail, is what will take you from where you are to where you want to go. And here's why. Here's why you have to do it. Here's why you have to stop self-sabotaging. And here's why you have to get rid of the distractions, get rid of the limiting beliefs, get rid of the excuses, get rid of the thought that you have to be perfect. You have to do it because somebody out there right now is waiting for you to do it. Because you have to realize that your story is the story they need to look to for hope. Your story is the answer to somebody else's problem. Your story and your life and your success is the key to unlocking the potential in somebody else, but you have to do it by your example. You have to do it through leading and showing them what's possible. And when you take those steps, even if it is the smallest step ever, when you take that step, you will start to show them what is possible. And you are going to set the standard for their life by showing them what the standard can be in your life. But it starts by stopping the limiting beliefs. It starts by letting go of all of the ways and the reasons that you are self-sabotaging your success, because you are so worth it. You are worth that success. And by simply removing those obstacles, you have the opportunity to get there. So I hope this helps you. Look, head over to Instagram, share this if you would. The way that we are going to help more people is by you sharing this, paying this forward, helping other people who might be self-sabotaging by helping them hear this episode. But go over to Instagram at @RealTannerClark and hit me up in my DMs and just let me know. Just say, hey, I believe in myself. Let me know that you heard this by telling me that you believe in yourself. And I promise that when you do that, you are going to be so happy that you are taking the steps of growth and limiting your self-sabotaging and all those things and limiting beliefs that are in your way. And it's truly going to change your life. So you're amazing. You know that I am in your corner. I am rooting for you. I want you to be happy. I want you to succeed. I want you to grow. And I know that you can. And if you're having a tough time believing that on your own, just know that I believe in you and I'm rooting for you to take that first step. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope it helped you. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss another episode and leave a review for the show. And as always, you deserve to be happy. You are worth it. You are more than enough. You are in control of your life and you have everything inside of you to reach your full potential. So go find your 1 second of strength and be happy.